Hello? Who is this?
Hey guys, it's Eve. That is actually how I answer the phone every time my dad calls. Just a little pre-pod note here. This week we're finally releasing our first ever Patreon episode, and we're also going to release our Patreon. So check it out on Instagram. Follow the podcast at Everyone's Doing Better, or you can follow Katharyn at Ew Girl You Nasty, or me at Eve Elbow. And we'll put out a trailer later this week. And that episode will be about a crazy thing that happened to me while dating. It was a real mind fuck, all right? So just listen. You can hear Katharyn's on ketamine in it. I'm having a meltdown. It's all of the elements that you probably sit around waiting for. Let's just be honest, right? It's us at our worst. So check that out. The Patreon is $5 a month for bonus content, $3 if you want to just support. And here is this episode with Liv Hewson. Enjoy. Welcome to Everyone's Doing Better Than Me, the podcast where we have our more successful friends on and confront them about why their successes are interrupting our path to enlightenment. I am one of your co-hosts, Eve Ellenbogen, along with my Capricorn co-host,
Katharyn Henson.
And our guest today is actor, writer, comedian, friend. What's your sign?
I'm a Sagittarius.
Ooh,
Sagittarius.
Fun. Oh, I love it. I'm excited.
Liv Hewson.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being here.
Really good, too. That was a good high. I can't do that. My voice is too low. I won't even do it. No one will listen. But thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Liv, just briefly before we go into our first little section here, I think that you and I met on a podcast, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we're pretty sure we did.
On Josh Earl's Don't You Know Who I Am?
Properly. We'd been we'd seen each other around before that, but that was the first time we were in close proximity.
Yeah, and that was in Australia. So this is like a magical moment. We've come full circle. You're on my podcast. So
we love to see it.
And you still are the person who, it's really like the whole Don't You Know Who I Am? My microphone just fell over. I'm so zen. Don't You Know Who I Am is a podcast about people's success. People still know who you are. Only the people listening to this know who I am. But anyway, neither here nor there. Okay.
Wow, you're not bitter or anything.
No.
Eve's wearing lipstick today. I just want to point that out. Eve put on lipstick, so then I had to put on lip gloss, and I'm still not the prettiest girl in the room. So, thanks, Eve, for that. I hate you.
Well, I'm sorry, Katharyn. Right now, it's been sunny in New York. It was brutally hot. I have gotten a bit of a golden tan.
Yeah.
You are glowing.
Thank you. Part
Eve's
of it
glowing.
is my new ring light. But a big part of it is just I tan quickly. But I've noticed a couple of moles on my chest, so I'm going to go to the dermatologist before I go to Coney Island Beach because I'm like, am I dying? But anyway, before we go into that, I have to ask Katharyn, this week, recently, whatever, has anybody hurt you?
The list is endless. It really is. Endless, but if I had to pick one, Henry is back. Henry is back, and I'll explain to Liv really quick. Right. I'll try to condense it, who Henry is. Henry is a man that is my neighbor who I met because he could hear a noise that no one else could hear. And he was trying to locate the source of the noise. And at one point, he believed it was in my apartment, which was difficult for me when he would arrive at unannounced, knocking on the door. Unannounced, knocking on the door, and when I didn't answer the door, he'd go down and buzz me. One time at 8:45 p.m. Right?
Oh, that's normal and chill.
Yeah.
Is it like a ringing or like a clicking? What is he looking for?
It's a low humming, which to be fair, does exist in the building, but it wasn't ever the ones that I could hear, but now it's penetrated my life because when I do hear noises, I'm like, is that Henry's noise? So I'll be meditating and then I'll be like, is that the noise? And then I'm like, this is a never ending assault on my mind now. But then it stopped for a while. And because I had to yell at him. I did the thing where he knocked on my door and I was
she got New York on him.
I did that. Yeah. he's like, this isn't very neighborly. And I was like, where I come from, neighbors aren't neighbors. And that's what I thought it was like here, you know? I mean, like,
what's not neighborly also is like trying to enter my house at night.
Yes.
Right. When we're not friends. Yeah.
No. And and I tried. Like, we did a whole thing where I turned the boiler on and off for him because he thought it was my boiler. Like, he was in the house.
Right. Like you collaborated. There was effort made.
Yeah.
You did everything you could.
Right. So he's been absent once we were like, you know, this is a hard no. Like, get the building involved. So I saw him in one of those moments, one of those vulnerable moments when you're entering your apartment building and you're like, you just want to get inside your own apartment as fast as possible, right?
Yeah.
Like, something was happening. It was raining. I've been trying to do this like self-therapy on myself because I can't find a good psychoanalyst, and I've had like 30 different ones over the course of my lifetime, and I'm finally dealing with my childhood trauma. So in order...
Is that even real though?
The trauma? I don't know. Do you see my attitude right now? I'm like manic. Like,
I think we're all fine. Everything's fine.
I actually don't think anything's ever happened.
No, I think everybody's just too sensitive.
This is me telling Henry about his noise. This is what you guys are doing to me what I do to Henry. I'm like, this doesn't exist.
Absolutely, just like yellow wallpapering Henry about this humming he's hearing.
Yeah. So I was like listening to my like trauma book, and like I had like 5 boxes because I bulk order things because I think every day of my life is the end of the world. And so I'm like,
oh
carrying...
really? What that's going on now would have given you that idea? That's crazy.
I don't know. But the things I order too are like ridiculous. Like kombucha. Like everybody, like kombucha's great. Like whatever. But like bulk order. You know what I mean? Like, what am I doing?
You can make that on your own.
Okay,
like
don't do this.
You're the king of... You do everything on your own.
No, you got me. You told me light a candle, so I tried to make a candle when I was suicidal in lockdown.
I didn't say make a candle.
Well, but see, I was like, why buy candles to light when I could make the candles? And I made a mess in my kitchen, and the pots are still covered in wax. So that's your fault.
The cleanup is rough.
Thank you.
But
I'm not doing
kombucha is way easier than a candle. Who makes? I'll make my candles.
Yeah, shut up. Like, are you Henry's noise? Because you're sounding like a lot of noise in my ear. And so anyway. Like, basically, I'm coming up the stairs with all my boxes of like soap. I've ordered shampoo again. I have shampoo. It doesn't make sense. That, yeah. And I see him. He's like, because he's my above neighbor, and I'm like, oh, of course, this is this perfect moment to see this man for the first time in months, you know. And he's like slinking out, and I'm like, hi, and he's like, hello, and then I can't help myself. Like, it's just like, shut up. But instead I was like, did you ever figure out? I did it to myself, so maybe I hurt me. But then he's like, no, but it went away, and so I thought it was the heating, but now it's back, and it's 24 hours a day. And I'm like, oh fuck. Like, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry.
That's his father in his brain. Do you know what I mean?
Actually, I should buy him the audiobook I'm listening to and be like, I have a gift for you. Sure. Like, slide that under the door like he used to slide notes under the door. But
Henry,
then
you can't be doing all this.
It was no,
but he's single, so we're just keeping an eye out for me because
he's a prize.
Yeah.
But then basically what's happened the past 2 days is Mark got a text because at some point my husband gave him his phone number, not mine. I was like, get me away from this. He sent Mark a text saying that the power was going to go out in the building, but that was yesterday. But then it went out today. So it's like, as I was preparing to do this podcast, I like couldn't charge my computer, and I was like, Henry, like, so it's fine. It's just like, some things never die, You think death is for everything, but some things live forever.
Why did the power go out? And why is he the one telling you? That should be the landlord.
Well, he heard it. He heard it coming.
Right? Maybe actually there's more to this. Maybe Henry is like, he's like tuned into some shit.
He's hearing the grid.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe I've been underestimated. Maybe he hears my future and I can find out a lot of things I'd like to know so I'd stop being so stressed about my career. But that's another day.
Well,
that's another hurt.
We have all this UFO stuff now that we're like, they might exist. Well, no, because I know that you don't like pay attention to the news because you don't read.
I don't know how to read.
Or can't.
That's very impolite to bring up on this.
But the U.S. government just released this like report on
basically saying those are probably aliens. Okay, anyway, don't worry about it.
This report being like, here's all these sightings by the Navy. So like the U.S. government, like their own arms, like basically recorded this, and they're like, these things move faster than any known
cockroach,
man-made devices.
Yeah, they just publicly were like, yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, go about your business.
Yeah, but we're not going to investigate the election or this either. But I think that this is something you should bring to Henry and ask him about. What does he think about UFOs and stuff like that?
Yeah, you know what? I'll bring the UFOs to Henry, and then I'll bring my trauma to him too, and maybe we can hold hands.
You should read, and he should read, and everyone should read Sarah Krasnostein's The Believer. Which came out this year. She wrote The Trauma Cleaner. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's one of my favorite books ever written. And The Believer is her second book that just came out. It's fantastic, and it's like different intertwining stories about just people who like very intensely believe different things. Like she spent some time with like a Mennonite community and like UFO truthers and a fundamentalist Christian museum, like just like a bunch of different stuff like that, and it's really beautiful. It's a great book. Loved it.
Wow.
I like the idea. I guess not to like get into this, but a lot of people tend to be so closed off to things that are so radical away from their own perceptions or thoughts or beliefs, and I'm not one of those people. I love considering everything. It's just sort of, it's because when you close yourself off, you miss out on a lot, right? Like, yeah. I'm never going to be a fundamentalist Christian. I mean, I think I've already
never
sort
say
of
never.
I don't know.
Never say never.
Well, yeah, don't threaten me with a good time, actually. Yeah. So. But that sounds great. I'll add it to my. I'm one of those people who gets books and then like never reads them.
One of those people. You mean just like you're a person?
Yeah,
like, I have so many books. Yeah.
Mark reads books all the time. It's impressive.
Right.
I check books out from the library and then return them on Instagram, admitting my own failure because I was like, if I need something more to feel bad about, here it is. I'll put it on the internet. But
I'm going to use this to punish myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought I
was
smart, but I'm stupid. That's your thing. Everybody should know I'm an idiot. Like that's what you do.
Good.
But
so
here,
so
it's my podcast.
It's Henry. It's me. It's the noise. It's the books I don't read. But Eve, always. Now we go to you. I have to ask you.
All right. So mine usually
you were ready to go. I didn't even ask the question.
Oh, I thought about it.
You're
okay. You say it. So I say sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I'll
this
wait
is like
to be
highlight
prompted
for my week. Can I just have anything nice? Can I have anything nice in my life? Okay.
Okay. Ask me.
Okay. So my question is, Eve, who hurt you?
Well, it's funny that you should ask that. I wasn't sure if I'd get my turn. So this week, okay, I've been getting back into the open mic. Well, getting into the open mic scene in New York.
Because it's 'tis the season. It's like opening up.
Totally. Everything's like open. We're all like, what Delta variant? Let's just live before we die. And like, it's just like so. It's just so hard to trust that like the future exists, but we're all just doing it. We're indoors, no masks. In New York, it's like everybody's vaccinated for the most part. And so I've been, and I live, here I have no one knows me at all. So I'm like working. People like I'm meeting people for the first time and they're like, cool, do you want to come do my open mic? And then it's like $10 to sign up, and like there's 5 comics. I wouldn't pay $10. I haggled, and then I ended up paying in coins. I paid $5 and I paid in coins that
now
I had
that's
in my
comedy.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm a comedian, do you take quarters? And they were like, oh my god. But so I guess so I don't even mind anymore about starting from scratch because I feel like my jokes have gotten better because they're not just like, I have a pussy. And it's been really fun and I've been meeting people. But I will say that what hurts, and every time I'm like, no, I'll get through this and it will be fine, is all of these open mics, you get the newer, like the really new guys talking about, like making jokes about rape and date rape and about women being the worst.
Yeah.
And it's like I think to myself like, no, well, he's just so young, and I try to let it go.
Don't. I understand why, but like, no.
It just
because these guys would never be that generous with you.
Well, they're not.
Wow. Yeah,
they're not. And it's funny yesterday, and this guy didn't make any rape jokes, but like,
What a saint.
Yeah, I know. Wow, what a prince. Yeah, he...
I'm wet all of a sudden. My God.
But, well, some of these guys, when I've made fun of them, or, lightly or, like, in a real way, like, twice. Like, one guy yesterday didn't make any rape jokes, but I said something about him being... Because I asked... He said something... This was the worst open mic I've been to for so long. Like, it was like...
Yeah, all it's like, this bit I didn't miss so much.
Yeah. Oh, totally. The unair conditioned room. Lots of people. But, like, he had mentioned his girlfriend being Israeli. So I said... and it was like in reference to something. I was like, wait, you said that your girlfriend's Jewish and you're not, right? And he was like, no, I'm Jewish too. And I said, you're too cute to be Jewish, right? Like, and then everyone was like, ooh, and I'm like, no, I don't mean it like that. He's like 15, right? And he's like, I'm 24. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm not being shitty to you. I'm 37. I'm just trying to like...
The shovel is out and you are digging.
Well, no, but so then
I know you don't mean to. Yeah.
Well, he goes, yeah, I was getting a real mommy vibe from you. And like someone else said this, like, and then I was like, okay, well now I have to ruin your life,
Yeah.
But I guess someone else, this other guy who did make like rape jokes, said something about me looking older, and I'm just like, it's so funny that these people who are like 20 think that they're really hurting me. I'm like, you think I wish I was 20? But I guess
it's also just like, it's just those guys with women especially, the first thing they go to is age, because like they expect that to hurt, because it's like, yeah, I think you're older and that means that I respect you less, or like I'm attracted.
Isn't that crazy?
Less. Like it's fucked
up. I don't want to fuck you, therefore you're not valuable. It's like, wait a minute.
And I expect that, and I expect that to hurt your feelings.
Yes. And because you should know that the like universal cred for women is fuckability.
Is whether I personally think that you're attractive.
Right. And also they don't even know if they personally find women attractive. They know, they measure it against this like standard that they're like, oh, well, I have to fuck these kind of women, right? Yeah. Because if I don't, then I'm like a pussy or I'm gay or whatever.
Yeah. Gender policing. We love.
But it's just so cool. So it's like I hear these jokes and I just am like, it's like, what do you I forget if did I bring this up last time, Katharyn, the guy who I ended up like having a thing with at the open mic. I think I told you about it.
Well, there's been a few, and you and I have also talked about a few off mic. So I'm like,
but I forget if I talked about it on the
You
podcast.
talked about one guy who, but his thing was like
he hated women.
Well, he also was like talking about how he's like the shit, but then got on stage and clearly was not.
Oh, that's a different guy. Okay,
that was the one you talked about, I think, on the podcast.
The worst guy.
There's so many, it's like the worst bouquet ever.
The worst guy was one who he looks like James Dean. So so I think he gets a lot of like reinforcement in his life for who he is.
That's in a lot of ways that's a curse.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
And then, but his whole set was how he hates women. And it wasn't like I'm reading into it like, oh, he doesn't. He was like, I hate women. They're a bunch of cunts. No, I'm just kidding. I have a sister. I have sisters and a mother. And I was on next, and I'm like, and of course, all the women are like, ugh, like they're making these like noises of disapproval, but they're not. I don't know. Like, I guess I feel like at that level, it just makes them feel less. Whereas for me, I know that he's never going to make it. I know he's not funny. I know his life is going to be shitty, and I know that I'm much funnier than him. So I felt this responsibility to like roast him afterward.
No, 100%. I know exactly what you mean. And but it's like, it's just what gets me so much about that is I'm like, wow, you really think you're being so counterculture right now, just spouting the dominant social opinion of the last several hundred years.
God, I wish you'd been there.
Because God, you're boring. That's so boring.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Oh wow, a guy who hates women. Whoa, somebody get a reporter. It's just, I guess my thing was I was like, wow, you are so young. This is your personality for the rest of your life. It's going to be so hard. But the thing was, most of the people in the room were his friends. So it was like, it wasn't like, oh shit. It was like, who's this angry feminist bitch? But he keeps showing up at all of these mics that I'm on it and then leaving. And I'm like, and I keep doing really well. And I'm like, oh, I want him to watch,
And his friend's reaction to that is so annoying too. Because it's like, oh, so he's allowed to be angry in his comedy. But like, you're not. And why? And like, why? It's like,
I love you. I love you. I love you. I mean, yeah, because the thing is, sometimes I get caught up in the like, I mean, because for me, I'm like, I don't want to. I was pissed because I waited around. I left the house. I went to this mic. I waited for an hour, and so now it's like my whole day. My whole afternoon has has been building up to like me wanting to work on a joke, which by the way, that day was about my mom dying. And
nice. I'm glad you're doing that shit finally.
Yeah, well, that Katharyn has recommended to me that I'm like, she's like, your mom dying is so funny.
Yep.
But I was like, I'm not gonna like get on stage after this guy being like, women are cunts, and be like, so when I was a kid, my mother died.
Yeah. And so but he's now created a space where it's like you can't actually be vulnerable or like do your job. And also, like, all the women in the room feel like shit. And it's like, well, that's your audience. So why are you doing comedy then? Just do it in your room for you.
Yeah. While you're naked in the mirror.
Looking at your tiny penis.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I also thought that the host or the guy who runs it, who I think is a nice guy, but he's also just, like, very young and kind of dumb. He should have just been like, well, that doesn't represent the room. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like, done something to clear the air or be like...
Yeah, you see MCs do that all the time.
Totally. But he didn't. So then, because the thing is, for me, it's like, it's so hard. I don't need censorship or what, I can deal with it as long as I don't feel like it's me against the world. I can, but
and it doesn't even have to be like as direct as that, but just for an MC to like make a joke about him, about that, like make a joke about like women not finding that attractive or being like, oh, well, like you hate women. Well, like women don't want to be around you either. It's like that, like it can be funny even.
Yeah.
But within that, there's an implicit dismissal for the audience to be like, oh, actually it's fine for me to be here and I don't need to worry about these people making me feel like shit.
Totally. That's just a guy like saying something. It's not,
and it's
like
over now and nobody agrees with him.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's over now.
It's over now. Yeah.
Take a breath,
Yeah. Yeah. It's just so strange. Like, I mean, I'm like, wow. Like, to me, it's like I grew up really not knowing how many men hated women or how much this whole idea of like women aren't funny. I never heard that until I was like almost 30. Like when I started doing stand up and I was like, when people were like, oh, it sucks that people say women aren't funny. I'm like, they do.
Yeah.
Like all the women I know are really funny, but
same.
Yeah. So anyway, this week that was a more genuine who hurt you.
That was very genuine. I just, I like hear what you're talking about, and I guess like because I used to do comedy in New York, I guess I'm thinking is like very soon you're not going to be there.
Yes. Yeah.
Like in that. I mean, I know what you're talking about. I've been there. Sometimes I would drop in if I needed to do something, and then it's just like you don't see those people anymore because they're not elevating. Yeah, they stay there.
Yeah.
Because look, I'm all for like whatever kind of joke if it's funny, but like it's rare that it can be. You have to actually be good at comedy. So like,
don't
you can't
start.
You can't just like say upsetting things.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think it's like don't start at rape, because it's like they're like, what is the golden calf or what what is the sacred cow or the thing that I'm not supposed to say, and it's like the thing you're really not supposed to say is that you feel insecure all the time, because that can be really funny if you're like I feel like shit and or like if you're kind of vulnerable, then that's like a good place to search around, or feeling like I'm so afraid of being accused of rape. I think that would be like actually I think it's like, why don't more men talk about that? Because I'm just like, there's so many funny things in that. I mean, I had friends in Korea who it's like the Korean women make noises like they're being raped because they're not supposed to make like sounds that are like they enjoy sex. The enjoyment is like, no, it's like, whoa. And so I had friends who were like, they would stop and be like, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, why? And I'm like, that is like, there's so much in there, but instead it's like, instead of being like, oh, I don't know what to do and all stuff like that, they're like, rape is funny. I'm like, no, you missed your insecurity. Like I think, I'm like,
which I can see so clearly from here. Like, why don't you tap into that?
Yeah, exactly. There's so much material, but you will never ever find it, and that gives me like a little glow, being like, this guy will be in this seat for the rest of his life.
It's funny. I didn't like one. I don't know if I should. I'm going to ask you. Do you know that thing that happened to me a few shows ago with the Italians that ripped me off? Should I talk about that really quick? Because it seemed
really quickly. Because then I want to ask Liv.
Yeah, I want to ask Liv too.
Okay.
But I guess I would be because I'll put it this way. I have blinders on most of the time. And, so everything you're talking about, like I saw it, but I was like steamrolling right ahead, like, fuck them, and that's not necessarily the way to be, but that's just what I did.
It's a very legitimate way to do it.
You kind of have to.
Yeah. But like I did have this thing happen to me so I was stuck in Australia for the beginning of the pandemic. For 6 months.
In Melbourne.
In Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really, I had the best time ever. Yeah. And when I could leave, my husband and I went to rent a room from some friends of mine in a 3-bedroom flat. It was £1,100. We ended in London. Yeah. We ended up finding out that they were renting us the room for $750. So we were basically paying their rent. They were each paying like $175. And
that is so brutal.
Yeah, it was very brutal because it's during a pandemic, and I was also having to sell everything in my New York apartment, break my lease. We went back into lockdown. It was like a whole thing. And when I confronted them on it, it was obviously like not good, No. And when we moved out, I found them a new roommate and everything. And we had a whole argument about what that new roommate would be charged because we were going to subsidize an amount until the end of our agreement. But it was like a made up number, $750. That's not what was on the lease. So I ran into one of these guys at a show because obviously this is a comedian. And it was weird because we hadn't seen each other, and we were doing that kind of like, okay, we can like work in the same sphere. Like I don't have an issue, I don't like you and I don't want to work with you, but I will. But when he was leaving the show, he put his, one of his hands on my shoulder and one of his hands on my bicep, 2 hands on me. And he said, goodbye. And I'm not a touchy-feely person anyway. This man and I hugged maybe once ever prior to the complete breakdown of relationship. And I really was upset about it. And so I got home and I sent him a WhatsApp message saying when we were at this show, you put both your hands on me when you were leaving. Don't ever touch me again. That's like, this is my space. I don't want you in it. And his reply,
like that. Don't do that.
Yeah. And, what I thought a normal reply would be like, oh, I'm sorry I did that. Won't happen again. But his reply to me was that he had been feeling bad about the way we left things when we left, and that he was opening WhatsApp to send me a message. And then he sees this message from me and how sorry he feels for me, that I take everything as an attack. And I don't know, some other shit like of that nature. And I didn't read it.
Whatever.
But
why would you?
No, yeah. But it's like I could see most of it, and I was just, but I don't know, when I think about that and I think about what Eve's talking about, and I don't understand, I guess for me doing comedy, what I'm trying to do is connect with people and have humanity, and I think you have to have humanity to do that. Whether you want to tell a rape joke or you want to be a comedian. I think there's hacks that stand up there and are like, what's the deal with like R. Kelly or whatever, you know what I mean? And they say nothing, and that's fine. That's valid. You can do that. But when people are responding to other people in the way the guy at Eve's mic is, the way this man did, and in this case they happen to be men. I'm not going to say women haven't also done like shitty things.
No, totally, it's a power thing.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess I don't see the value of being like that when trying to do a job that I think that it really, at the base of it, is connecting with as many people as you can.
It's also, it's like, those are the people who will talk so much about like people needing to have a thick skin to be in comedy, and I'm like, physician, heal thyself a little bit, because you can't handle being told that like you made someone feel a bit off socially one time. Like you can't handle being told that. So maybe get off Twitter. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like, it doesn't sound like you have a very thick skin at all.
Get off Twitter, get a therapist,
Yeah.
Liv, this brings us to asking you, who has hurt you, or has anyone hurt you?
Yeah, I'll tell you, lately, this fucking heat wave that's like just finished here now, but isn't over in a bunch of other places, and then like climate change writ large, because like every year of our lives has been like the hottest summer on record, and every year of our lives is going to be, and like last year, sorry, my sense of time is fucked up, but like late 2019, when I was in Australia for the holidays and the fires were really horrible right before the pandemic kicked off, I had this massive crying jag one afternoon in the house alone, and I was just like in a fugue state, walking through the house, just repeating to myself, like, it's just going to get worse. It's just going to keep getting worse. It's just going to keep getting worse. And then every time a heat wave like this happens, I'm like, it's just going to keep getting worse. Like, it's just going to keep getting worse. And so there's the existential despair of that, and then there's also the lived reality of like just me being a fucking ginger, and like I can't do it. I'm not designed to do it, and my apartment here doesn't have air conditioning, so I've been like sleeping with wet towels on me, and like
I'm sorry, that's hilarious.
And it doesn't have air conditioning because it never gets this hot, right?
Yeah. A lot of places in Vancouver don't have AC because you're not supposed to need it.
Oh my God. And you're in Vancouver to be filming.
Yes.
Like you're working on a show.
Yeah. So
wow.
So I've just been taking a lot of freezing showers and just like pacing the house, unable to sleep.
Oh my God. And because it's like, wait, so they aren't, why don't they get you air conditioners? Like, I mean, I feel like I would be such a diva.
Well, they sold out. Like the city of Vancouver sold out of air conditioners. There was a day, like 2 days ago, where there was no ice left in the city.
I saw that and I thought that was a joke.
That's not a joke. It's like there was no ice left in the city for a day. I'm sorry. This is why America's better, because
there's always ice.
Consumer goods.
We may cause the problem, but we also can solve it temporarily with things that exacerbate the problem. I mean, yesterday all of us got an alert. It was like on the street. I just heard like everybody, and you pick up your phone. Everybody's phone. They sent out an emergency alert, and it was like, stop consuming so much electricity because basically it was like the city was on the brink of a fucking power outage.
But did they turn off Times Square during that?
No.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, then fucking forget it.
That's turn off Times Square.
Make sure you buy Adidas though, but don't use your AC. But die in your sneakers. Die in your new sneakers.
Yeah,
and the
also
M&M store.
It's like what's happening in Texas at the moment. It's just like, oh, so you guys. So there's like an infrastructural problem that you would like everyone to fix by not using the public like good that it's there to support.
Yeah. Well, apparently I heard something about California. I don't know if California has. I think it is California too. California and Texas both have private. Am I right about this?
Yeah, that's exactly it's privatization.
And so because there's parts of the year where they don't have a huge amount of power.
Yeah.
And so the companies can't make a huge profit at those times.
Yes.
They don't want to build extra power plants
100%.
because then they're like, well,
but that would make the money sad.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's like, so just part of the year, people, it's like, well, you might die, but the other part of the year we make money. So not even during that part of the year when
you
people
might
are dying.
die, but if you live,
I'm just like I remember like learning about privatization as like a kid through like British comedy sketches about it, and just like being radicalized instantly. Or I'm like, so no, private companies shouldn't own public
utility
services. This is crazy.
I know.
That's sort of funny that you say like through British comedy sketches, because then I'm like, what did I learn as a kid through American comedy sketches? I'm like, needs more cowbell. Like that is the one I have in mind, and I'm like, that's it.
Well, my dad keeps trying to get me to watch what's his name? Sid Caesar's Show of Shows. I mean, my dad is like 86 now, and so it's like he is an annoying 9-year-old sometimes about stuff where he's like, have you seen this? I'm like, I watched 2 sketches with you last time. Have you seen it? It's really good. You should put it on. I'm like, Dad, I'm doing all of the things on the list that you made for me that you need me to do for you while I'm here for 4 hours. I can't sit down and I got a house to run, But when I do,
you're a house manager now.
It's so crazy because he's like, we should watch it. Sit down. And I'm like, and he really is like a child. And my stepmother's like, leave her alone. But the 1 or 2 times I've watched it, the whole joke is always women are dumb,
Yeah.
But he's like so nostalgic about it because he's like, no, but she can't drive. And I'm like, I get it, Dad.
Yeah, I'm like,
but
no, I understand that part.
Now get in the car. We're going to the doctor.
Totally, I'm driving. And it's just so. Yeah, that's what I learned from comedy. But I love that you learned, what was it, that privatization is the enemy?
Yeah, there's this particular like sketch from A Bit of Fry and Laurie where I was like 100% privatization is a mistake. Like just instantly.
But how old were you when this?
I was like I watched. We were like a DVD box set family, so like we would I would watch a lot of comedies on DVD box sets. But how old was I? Maybe around 10.
I would have loved to be at your house.
10 to 12.
I was a sleepover kid who came over for the DVD box sets. But then I had sleeping problems, so then I would call my mom when it was bedtime to go home. I was a disaster. Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprised you don't still call your mom at bedtime to go home. Like, just like, Mom, can I fly to Vegas?
Who says I haven't? I haven't?
Mom, come pick me up. I'm scared.
Yeah, totally.
Seriously, though. No, God, I literally had that thought last night. Oh.
Liv, all of this brings me to, because, I'm thinking about like, wow, you were 10 going, privatization is wrong. It brings me to you, which is really, you couldn't tell by me and Katharyn going on forever, but this episode's really about you. That was so long. I was like,
wait, it is.
Done. I loved it.
I was like, will we ever shut up? We'll see. We'll find out. And so it's about you and how, number one, you're very successful.
Thank you.
And number two, that really makes things harder for us.
It's upsetting.
I am truly sorry.
I actually believe Liv when
Liv says that.
Yeah, I believe you. Which is now more upsetting because I don't get to. I would like to be angry. Before you start, can I just say like my quick thing? So like when I was stuck right when Corona hit and I was stuck in Australia. And when we all like thought it was going to be like, I'll be inside for like 4 days, there was even like an inkling that the Melbourne Comedy Festival was going to happen still, like just because of where it was. I needed some way to fill the time, and I turn on Netflix and I'm like, oh, I'll watch this crazy fun show with Drew Barrymore. So it's like I've now seen Liv called Santa Clarita Diet. Now it's like a test.
No, but I'm saying like not every listener is gonna like what show.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Starring Liv as one of the main characters.
I know, but so I didn't even realize when Eve was like, I have this wonderful friend who should come on the podcast. I was like, oh, of course, because I like Eve's friends. But then I was like, wait a minute. I've seen this person on TV. Where, what? I did the whole like old lady thing. So
I love that.
So now that I've like realized that I know who you are, now I dislike you even more. But by that I mean I like you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So that's
and it's not for being like oh yeah, I know who you are and you're that horrible person. It's like I know who you are and you are fantastic, so I don't want this anymore. No,
so self-sabotage. Get me off this podcast.
So this is how you hurt us. I'm gonna say, I would say me, but I think us is fine.
Yeah, I think us is fair. You can. I'll sign off on whatever you say.
And I don't usually make lists about the guests because I can usually go, oh yeah, you're funny on stage, you're this, you're that. But with you, there's like so much that I was like, I gotta write it down.
I get a list.
Yeah, you get a list. I mean, okay, so first of all, and I think that this is like has already come through so clearly just in our little beginning. You just like know who you are and you know what you think so clearly and you have no insecurity about it. Like you're like, yeah. Those guys wouldn't give you that generosity. Like, it's fine to be like angry at Oprah. I'm like, it is. I'm allowed.
I was even questioning myself when you were saying, you know what I mean? And then I was like, wait a minute, it's okay. Like I was like, maybe it's okay.
No, I'm supposed to just keep going and not think about it and forgive them. And you're like, no, that's all right. I'm like, oh, it is all right. And then you're like, yeah, privatization is the worst. I'm like, oh, you're right. That is a stance I should have had when I was 10,
It's 10's young. 10's young.
Liv just saved me, though, like at least an hour of therapy or two with the open mic conversation.
Seriously.
Like, it's okay. It's okay to have your feelings. I'm like, you know what? Yeah. So now I don't need to get a therapist. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think that was the takeaway. But
no. That's fine.
Yes.
You have this like air of contentedness or like peacefulness that I just find shocking.
Is it contentment?
Contentment. Yeah.
Is that what I
think? Contentedness.
God, we don't even know English. Okay.
I do. That's a thing. Anyway,
contented. Sorry.
Shut up.
I think they both work.
Yes, thank you. And you're also very nice. See, look.
Look at that.
I hate it.
We both win.
Yeah, but like, you're like, oh, it's only going to get worse, the fires. And you're like, but I'm still going to be nice. I mean, we were in LA. So I stayed with you in LA
Yes, you did.
After the Fringe, which was like kind of amazing. We'd met a couple times, and then I was like, I'm coming to LA, and you were like, you can stay with me in my, like, literally in my room.
Yeah, in my little studio.
Yeah, where I did for a week, and that was, thank you, by the way. And
that is incredibly generous.
Generous.
Because Eve was going to come over here for the Camden Fringe before like restrictions weren't eased, and I was like, I could give you like a weekend, two days.
Yes, she did say that. But I got it. It was fine. But we went to go get ice cream, and I forget if it was like, I know that the guy behind the counter recognized you. And I forget if someone else.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Oh, that must be. Oh yeah, it happens all the time. I just forget. I'm like, if that were me, I'd be like masturbating over that for like a lot. I mean, people in the
ice
tram
cream store.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm gonna come.
It is me. Want to see something?
Yeah. You know me. You love me. Because I remember like on the tram in Melbourne, somebody saying, "Oh, I saw you do stand up," or like once, I would always like do this thing where I would like stick my ass out as like part of a joke, and like once somebody came up to me and just like stuck their ass out, and I was like, this person might hurt me.
I know exactly what that gesture is. I've seen you do it before. Oh, that's so fun.
And I remember it. And you, like, we go out for gelato at the coolest gelato place in LA, in Los Feliz, and people were like, I really love your work. And I think, and you were just like so like gracious, and you like no, there's no ego. There's no ego involved in any of it. And I'm like, I have ego being with you. I'm like, and this is my friend. I'm friends with them. And you're just like, yeah. And you hear it and you're present, and then you let it go and you forget all about it. What else here?
I do want to say that's amazing, because it's like I've had ego death because of the amount of ketamine I've taken at least 14 times, and yet my ego remains today. So
I gotta tell you, that's not death then.
It won't go away.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the other thing. These are like, so you're like, this is kind of unheard of, right? You're like talented, right? Like, and I know that, success and acting and all this is much more about, it's more than just talent. So you're talented and you're hardworking, and you pursue it, and you don't fuck it up with drama. I think so many people in like any kind of entertainment industry, they're just like, oh, I'm going to have, I'm going to go for it. But excuse me, do you know that I am vegan? What the fuck is it? Or not. If it were me and there was like no air conditioning, I'd be like, I'm not working until you get me fucking air conditioning.
Yeah, you
would. Yeah, for sure. I would totally be like, I'm not, or just like, or I would sleep with somebody, or I would, do you know what I mean? Like the wrong somebody. In fact, I have. I would just like, people just self-sabotage so much. And you started off on this path, I think pretty young. And you just like, didn't fuck it up for yourself. You're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do it, and I'll just like read books about like trauma cleaning, and like it's just like and then of course on top of everything, you've become like, or you are this like role model because you're gender non-binary, and you like put that out, and like so many people, particularly kids, must like really, I think, rely on you, or not rely on you, go to you for comfort and like inspiration.
Well, talking about it publicly, it's like that's who I do it for. Is like young or like younger LGBT and other non-binary kids. Just because I'm like, I like being a non-binary kid for me was miserable because I didn't have the language for it, or anything to look at, or anyone to talk to about it, or any kind of framework at all. And it's funny talking about like self-sabotaging and getting in your own way and stuff. I don't know if this is like true or just a story I tell about myself to myself. But for a long time I had this feeling, and I still do a little bit, that like I got a lot of my self-destruction out of the way early. Really? Which is, were you a self-destructive kid? 100%, massively. And I was a deeply, deeply unwell teenager. Like miserable, harrowing, awful. So it's like by the time my adolescence was ending, I started acting professionally then. Like I quit my day job at 19, and so I was like this kind of like this like 25.
Right. Okay.
So I was like this fragile, volatile, like, yeah, okay, I think I've made it. I think we're fine now. I think I'm out of danger. Yeah. And then by the time I was like 21, 22, I was like, okay, so now I need to start processing some of that. But I wasn't I was making fewer decisions that were going to hurt me in that moment. And so like now at 25, it's like back in therapy and like like my job is the part of my life that I feel the most grounded in, where I'm like, I know I can do this. I know I love it. I know I'm good at it. Like this is the thing that I feel sure about. And and then just like I'm like, okay, so we've self-destructed a bunch already, and that's done. We don't need to do that anymore.
Right.
I mean, well, I just want to relate. Well, it just, the best thing, I'm a comedian, so I'm like, well, and then about me in relation to that. But I mean, like at 25, I was not there. I am there now. And I'm 33, and it's, and I had to go through something to even get like back to like, maybe start resolving the stuff that happened as a teenager. Like I feel like I did what you did sort of. I was very volatile as a teenager for a lot of stuff that happened and then did happen to me as a teenager, but happened when I was a kid. And then I shoved it away until, 2 months ago. And used like work as a distraction and whatever and all sorts of things and thought I was fine. And
it's like, I can never think about that again, and that won't matter at all.
Yeah. So to hear that, you're like at 22, 23, you're like, okay, I'm out of the woods and now it's time to start facing it. And then at 25, you're like not only successfully working, but facing it, because now that I'm facing it and I'm not nearly as successful as you are, I'm like, how will I have time to do? I'm busy working on me, but I mean, because it's very emotional.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
And I mean, and then I like hate myself because I'm like, are you just being a pussy? Like, go get the day job and do everything and work on yourself in addition to all the comedy and all the podcast and whatever, I'm doing, because I'm doing a lot. But so to hear that you're doing that is very impressive to me, because I feel incredibly fragile to do anything right now. And you're doing it younger while doing more. And just, fuck you.
You gotta be gentle with yourself, though. It's like that's because that's when that's when you do like grow and realize stuff, is when you give yourself space.
Katharyn says she's like, fuck you, and you're like, you just have to be gentle with yourself. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like she's just like, here's my anger, and you're like, yeah, just peace, peace for everyone. I mean, and you're currently so just like, because I didn't even go into the stuff, you were on Santa Clarita Diet, which is done filming, is that right? Mm-hmm. And then you were in Bombshell playing Charlize Theron's assistant, who Charlize Theron was playing
Megyn Kelly.
Megyn Kelly, yeah. And then you actually worked with my cousin, who is so famous that I don't even think she knows that she's my cousin.
You can't even say her name.
Zoe Deutsch. But she follows you on Instagram. She's got no idea who I am. I mean, I remember her from when she was a kid, but I think if I messaged her, she would just be like, oh, are you related
I'm
to
sure that's not true.
Yeah. I might be like,
yeah. You're the 15th person to say you're my cousin today. So,
But Small world.
That was weird realizing that you were in. Before I Fall.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, okay. I always am afraid of fucking up titles. Before I Fall, with her, and then you recently filmed a Korean drama, right?
Yeah, actually, it's season 2 of it was like the first big job I ever did was a show called Drama World in South Korea, and then it's an independent production, so it's like we always wanted to do more of it, but it was hard to logistically organize, and it's like a lot of people from a lot of different countries coming together, and but we all stayed in touch and we all really like each other. Some of those people, some of my closest friends. So actually what I did last year in South Korea was a second season of that.
That's so cool. And that was during COVID.
4.5 years later. Yeah.
4.5 years later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And now you started studying Korean, which I used to speak Korean really well, but now my Korean is so shit. And so I sent you a message in Korean just being like, congratulations or something. But then I was like, I don't know. And is Liv better at Korean now than me? There's my little...
I only just started. I mean, I taught myself the alphabet the first time I was there in 2015. But I'm
just laughing because I took Spanish for 4 years and I can say El Gato, and that's...
Right, and you lived in New York where everybody speaks Spanish.
But then last year I was there for 6 months, so I picked up a lot more. And then it's especially because I have friends there, some of whom only speak Korean and I only speak English. So it's we would we're close, but we don't share a language. And it's like, it's a place I love spending time. It's a place I plan to continue spending time. It's important to me. And I'm like, well, if all that's true, it would be rude. Not to learn some of it. You know what I mean?
Yes. I remember after I'd been there 6 or 8 months and I was planning on staying longer. I did leave after a year, but then I moved back. A friend of mine, when I was like, what's this called? And he was like, doenjang like, just like, which you might probably had. You have to, it's like a vegetarian, fermented soybean soup, Katharyn.
It's delicious.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really good. It smells like feet, but it tastes so good.
Nice.
And he was like, you need to learn Korean. You've been here long enough. And I was like, and I remember, I was actually thinking about this for a joke that I remember I was 23. And I kept being like, in my country, because they did things that I thought were stupid. I still think that some of the things are stupid, like when you're sick, you have to go to work. You can sleep on or under your desk.
Eve, as if Americans don't go to work sick. Like, are you out of your mind?
But they don't have, it's like a totally different concept around, like, you can go to work and be sick at work and not work. Like, you can take a nap on your desk.
That's true. Yes. But it's like, about being physically there.
Yes, you have to show that you're making an effort, which I'm like, this is
all about the
I would argue that like hustle culture in the States feels almost identical to that to me.
Oh, it's like worse, right? But I was 23 and I didn't know what that was. You know, I was like, well, hustle culture.
You're and like, also, well, I only notice strange things about other places. Totally. What I grew up with is normal.
Oh, I mean, it was, you know, I was so arrogant. But so I was thinking about this because I'm like, I'm a little bit annoyed with some aspects of woke culture. I think in some aspects it's great. In other aspects, I'm like, you know, some people have different experiences from you. And I was thinking about myself at 23 and I'm like, I didn't fucking know everything. But I could see, Liv, that you're like, no. Oh, wait, are you frozen? No,
Me?
okay.
No.
Yeah, okay. You were just looking
you were
at me with
so still.
Yeah.
I thought I can't sit that still ever in my life. Like,
were you just looking
so
at me?
Still.
Were you looking at me thinking, what do you think is stupid about woke culture? Was that like what you were?
No, I was just listening.
Okay.
No, I'm
like, what are you thinking, Liv? Yeah.
No, I have a question. I want to, because there has to be some sort of, because I'm getting really into energies and like this therapy that I'm doing to myself is involving like the self, like that's kind of like where it's based. I feel like you have to have some sort of peace or something in you to be able to sit that still. Like I
think I do, but it's not. I don't think it's innate. Like it was. It was very hard won. It took a long time.
Well, do you mind? Sharing anything you want to about it? Because I'm like sitting here like learning about energy and stuff, and I know Eve's probably not done complimenting you.
I want to ask her. Sorry, them. I want to ask them about some, and I apologize for that.
Don't worry about it.
I want to ask Liv some. Thank you. When I stayed with you in LA, I was like, I kept fucking up, and I was dying inside. And then I've realized, like, Liv's really cool, so I could just
you catch yourself every time, so it's good.
Yeah, thank you. But I want to ask Liv because we are trying to keep this a little shorter. So I want to. Is that okay if I just ask a different question?
Yeah. I desperately want an answer,
including this.
Okay. You can group it together. Yeah, there we go.
Yes,
just include me. All right, I need attention. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to know, like, how do you? Because it's. I feel like, so what I was saying before about being non-binary and being this kind of role model. There must be a lot of pressure on you. With acting, with your career, with being a role model, with being Australian I know that if you're Australian and you're working in like a bigger industry, people go, wow. And there's like so much reverence for you. Like, do you feel like you're kind of carrying a torch for people? And like, how do you deal with all this stuff?
No, I don't. But I really try not to think about it because I can't, like in my day-to-day life, that actually doesn't mean much for like how I like wake up and do every day. You know what I mean? It's like, so that it doesn't, I think if I thought about it, I would find it paralyzing. And it's just like, I honestly, I'm just like, well, I'm just a person doing stuff. And some of the stuff I do is quite silly when you think about it. Like I just try to take the stakes out of it, really.
And do you catch your ego ever? Like, do you ever have a moment where you're like in an ego place, or is that just not a place?
Yeah, the times that I find myself most obviously doing that is when I'll be like, I'm not doing enough, or like I don't feel busy enough, or like I need to be doing more, or like fuck, I'm just sitting here, I'm not even doing anything. And it's like I had a moment like that last week here, and it's like you're working right now, you idiot. Like, what do you, like, what are you talking, what do you want?
thinking,
like, what?
Yeah.
And that's when I catch myself. I'm like, well, what do you want? What do you want to be happening? It's like, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then, but I think what it is, it's like it's a lack of certainty about the future, which obviously like everyone on earth has, but then professionally, like actors have, because it's like, oh my God, what if I never work again? And it's like, well, what if you never work again? You'll do something else. Like the rest of your life will happen. Like you actually can't do anything about that. So just relax.
That's
very zen. Yeah.
It's I had to have a phone call last night where somebody who I consider a mentor like screamed at me, sort of what you just said, right? Because I was like complaining about what I'm doing fine, but I don't see it, and I lack gratitude right now, which, like, you know, Eve has been telling me to journal for the last, like, 14 million years of my life, and I won't do it, but I think I do need to move.
I will not do it.
I'm like, this is for you, but she's like, no. That's fine. Yeah.
But I do need to, like, sit down and sort of, like, look at that gratitude because, like you said, what if what I have now goes away, you know? And, like, and I don't get...
it might, and then what?
Yeah, and it will. That's the thing, is like life is ever changing, and it doesn't mean like, but I don't know, like I'm trying to examine sort of that feeling you just described having, like why sometimes I feel like I'm holding on so tight to things like you can't even really hold on to, and all you can do is just go.
And it reveals a bunch of expectations to me where it's like, oh, so your expectation is that your progress should be linear and it should be growing at a steady pace constantly, exponentially. And it's like, oh, that's actually... like capitalism. Like capitalism's done that to your brain. Where it's like, well, I need to be working all the time, and I not only do I need to be working all the time, but it needs to be bigger every time forever, and it can't ever stop. And it's like, okay, so that's pathological. Like that's insane. That's not how the human lifespan works, and that's not how anything works ever. Like there will be like times of great busyness and then times of great rest, and like some shit will happen you didn't expect, and you will want some things that don't happen, but like all of that is good actually, because you shouldn't be able to predict the rest of your life. You like there's more out there than you can see right now, so like let yourself be surprised by it and enjoy what's happening to you as it's happening to you. Otherwise, when do you get to enjoy it? Like never.
Because I'm not even sitting here enjoying myself. I know. I'm so upset because I'm like, you're 25. Like you're like what are you gonna know when you're 30? Like
I know.
But like, so I can't imagine you started being this grounded, right? Like I mean, you mentioned going through. So it's like, what it kind of like harkens to my original question. Like, I mean, how did you arrive here? Because I'm like slowly arriving here, but I'm not here. My day was manic, in spite of being yelled at and agreeing with everything he said, and then trying to like be more, you know, gracious
Henry?
Or whatever. Huh?
Agreeing with everything that who said?
My friend who screamed at me on the phone.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, Henry.
No,
the noise is real. The noise is real. Okay,
actually, Henry and I are friends. All that was a lie. No, I'm we're just crazy together. No. But like what I guess, was there a defining moment for you, or like over time, like, or like for me, I'm getting here because something bad happened, or was it just like, how did you arrive in this place where you have this sort of scope of things?
It was over time, and it was a lot of things at once. Like it was like, you know, like going through eating disorder recovery when I was a teenager, and then like coming to grips with the fact that I was non-binary, and like what gender dysphoria had done to me for years when I couldn't recognize it. So like figuring out how to be at home in my body physically, and then also figuring out like what my thought processes actually were now that I had names for them, where I'm like, oh, so this is panic, like this is fear, this is like not wanting to be seen or touched, or like actually having words for things was a massive part of it. And then it's like, okay, so now that I know what all of this is and what it's doing, now I can start like being like figuring out how to stop punishing myself. You know, where it's like, what if you were allowed to exist without pain and like without punishment? What if you actually haven't done anything wrong, and it's okay for you to just be around? Like that was massive. And then it's like, okay, well, if it's fine for you to just be around and there's nothing wrong with you, then like that was the massive start for me, I think. It's like, well, then the things that you want and the things that you're interested in and like the things that bring you joy, it's fine to do all those things. So stop using those things to also punish yourself more. It was just all about like why are you hitting yourself? Stop hitting yourself.
I mean,
And
yeah, sorry.
I'm just curious because that's like so much self-compassion. It's like mind-blowing and in like an amazing way.
Yeah.
And it
took ages. It took years.
I mean,
I know. Well, I feel like
I feel like you're like talking to me like
Yes.
what I
Yeah.
now, like where because that's what I do. I just hit myself. I mean, not literally,
Yeah.
but I have before, Okay.
Yeah.
You know.
No, me too. I get it.
How do you? So okay, let's just like think about this guy at the open mic who's like talking about hating women or whatever. How do you
Back
see
to my
someone,
favorite part of the podcast.
How do you see someone like that? Do you see him as like somebody who's kind of like living in this place, like this kind of prison, and like punishing himself? Like, or do you think? Because do you think there's nothing wrong with you, or do you think there's nothing wrong with you, like on the inside?
I look at that guy and I'm like, you don't even know why you're angry.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you couldn't accurately name what's emotionally happening to you.
Right.
Because it's like you're lacking the tools for it.
Right.
But then at the same time, it's like, if you hate women, it's not women's job to like teach you what your anger's about then. Because like you've chosen hostility. So it's like if you've chosen hostility, people are going to shy away from you because they don't want to get hurt. And that's going to isolate you. And that's going to make it worse. But like this is all happening without your conscious attention. So unless you're willing to engage with it consciously, that cycle's not going to end.
And then he'll have a kid. And then that kid will do it.
Then you'll have a kid. You'll have a fucking kid.
But the good thing is the world is ending, so he doesn't have that much time.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's just
that's
gonna
fun.
keep getting worse.
That's a fun little bow you put on it, Eve. I like that. That started with Liv. Very good. Very good. I feel better.
I love the way you see things, Liv, because you, like, in my best moments, and they only last for
30 seconds.
Yeah, kind of. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like,
same.
I remember the last time I lived in New York before I moved to Australia, I went through hell. And at the end of that time, just before I moved to Australia, I read all these books and I kind of got certain shit under control. And I realized, I was like, there's nothing wrong with you, right? Like, I was really mad at myself. And I had that revelation, and it really changed so much of like so many of my relationships. Some of my relationships ended. But that then, and I kind of thought, this is who I am now. And then, you know, over time it like dissipated, and now I'm kind of like this frantic like person again.
Well,
And
it's not linear, right? It's not.
Right.
It's like you'll go through times where things are clearer and where things are more confusing, and like where like you'll go through feeling worse and feeling better. That's like allowed. I've been saying this kind of in a joking way, but like some of my friends have started quoting it back to me, where in the middle of a conversation I'll just be like, that's allowed. It's allowed. Like that's really how I feel. I'm like, all of it's allowed. There's space for all of it.
I wonder
And
what...
do you go through...
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you go through that too, or do you go through this non-linear thing where do you have your moment? Yeah.
Yeah. We're so like suddenly at the end of a week, I'll be like, oh, I felt like shit like all week. Hang on. Why? All right. Stop, Fritz. Everybody stop. Hang on. I've got to figure out what's going on here. It takes me by surprise.
What were you going to say, Katharyn?
No,
and by the way, I feel bad in retrospect that I interrupted your question before. Just acknowledging that.
Oh, look at that. Wow, this is really just a peaceful little circle we're coming up with here, aren't we? Just, you know. Get my dad here. I want a compliment from him. No, okay. I don't remember. I think it was just, I'm in awe because it's just, it's, you know, these things when you start getting in touch with yourself, I guess there's things called synchronicities. And it's like, this is a really nice time for you to be on this podcast, for me personally, because I'm sort of sitting here like wondering, okay, why do I think like it has to be linear? Why am I not being like, oh, it's just like, it's okay. Like, I don't know, you know, to be not good one day or whatever. Like, and it's like, I have what Eve said, like these fleeting moments where I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And then when I'm not fine, I'm like, why aren't you fine? Like, get fine. Like, you know,
this is the double-edged sword, is that you can use narratives of self-improvement to punish yourself more, where it's like, I'm trying to get better. Why isn't it happening? Or like, why isn't it happening in the way I want, at the pace I want? Like, I'm stupid. Like, oh, you know, it's, and then it's like, okay, well, that's not what this is supposed to be for. Like,
Right.
This isn't supposed to also feel bad.
And just because you read so much and obviously have gotten so much from what you've read, right? Are there books that have like because I never asked this to anybody, but for you, I'm like I'm really curious. Like, what are the books that have made the biggest impact on you?
I really like collections of essays, just in general, especially. No, there's actually really no qualifier to that. I just like collections of non-fiction essays. But I get a lot out of those. I guess
in regard to like kind of self-help stuff, like is there stuff?
I really don't read self-help books.
Right. Okay. But even the Trauma Cleaner, that's not self-help book? No,
that's not a self-help book. That's a biography.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh. Yeah.
Right. So you're kind just of like this. You just developed this philosophy on your own.
I did read and get a lot out of one self-help book when I was a teenager that was recommended to me by somebody else. And I haven't read it in years, so I'm not sure how it holds up, but I remember finding it helpful at the time. And it's called How I Stayed Alive When My Brain Was Trying to Kill Me.
Wow,
Katharyn,
is that my Tuesday? Okay.
Yeah.
And like I haven't read it in a decade, but I remember getting heaps out of it at the time.
Right.
So it seems like when you say you like essays and just like this stuff, it's almost like you're absorbing the human experience from other people.
I like reading. Yeah. I like reading what people think and what they have to say about it. Like if somebody's moved to communicate something they've noticed, I'm like, okay, well, why? What's that about? What have you seen?
Right.
What are you looking at?
So you're an empath. I mean, it's like,
I'm an empath.
But it's like cultivating empathy, you know? I mean,
yes.
I was thinking about this yesterday on the subway. And by the way, in a minute, we'll start to wrap up. So if you have any other questions, Katharyn, now is the time in a second here.
Well, Eve is really the director today, and I kind of like it.
I know I never am. I'm always like, let's take 3 hours, and then I'll stress about the editing. And I'm like, no, let's just make it shorter and like.
Eve's the Capricorn today. I'm the Gemini.
Yeah. But I guess I was thinking I was trying to work on this joke because I think that we do kind of lack empathy more. I think especially living online or on our phones, you know, you're interacting with people in a way that you can't really see them. But
I feel that, I think.
And I was thinking that sometimes the left does that too, even though we think of ourselves as very sensitive and empathetic. But the truth is, it's like yes, we should all be considering what does it feel like to be, let's say, Black in America, you know, or trans or anything, you know, like what does it feel like to be people who we know are marginalized? But I also think we need to think about how does a person become a Nazi? Like, what does that person feel like too? Because that's actually how you really, like, you protect the people who are vulnerable, but also maybe preempt it by making people not so hateful by trying to understand those people too.
And then the I think a lot of that is what active allyship looks like, because you know, when you're talking about somebody who's like actively bigoted and hateful, it's like, well, a marginalized person actually might not be safe, you know, being like, oh, well, let me understand you, let me try and be here with you. It's like, well, that's actually not necessarily possible. So that's that to me is like the real work of being an active ally, is like that's the tough, uncomfortable, like talking to your like racist family members, or like for example, or like confronting biases you notice in acquaintances of yours. It's like, you know, that's the position that you're best utilized in.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Instead of just like the virtue signaling of, you know, then
I think it sometimes, though, I think it can also be therapeutic when you realize, if let's say somebody hates you, when you kind of understand them and their perspective more, and you go, oh, it's not actually about me. Yeah. Sometimes that really helps too. But it's not like, okay, everybody, if you're trans, I want you to go read
like,
these.
It's not about me. Well, then let's hang out. I'm like, no, I
actually
no,
it's not that.
I don't want to be near you.
No.
Yeah, but
no. I don't mean embracing the hateful. I just mean understanding. You know, like how does this happen?
Or like if I realize it's not about me, and therefore, like if like people say fucked things to me about my gender on like a semi-regular basis,
online and stuff.
Yeah, or in person. It's like it's been almost 10 years, you know, since I've been out to my friends. So it's like this, every single possible iteration of like the conversation about it, I've had multiple times. So
wow, and having to defend it,
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah, it's a nightmare. So it's like realizing that like it's like, oh well, that person said that hurtful thing to me. It's like either because they don't understand where I'm coming from yet, but they will, or because that person doesn't understand me and that scares them, so they've put up defenses about it and I can't reach them on my own, or like that person just genuinely like is frightened of something that has nothing to do with me. But like I realize it has nothing to do with me, but that doesn't That doesn't mean it isn't painful.
Yeah.
But what it does mean is I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let this, it's not a matter of letting so much, or it's just like, that has nothing to do with me, and therefore I'm going to live my life no different because of what you said to me. Or it's like, oh, that blah, 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 X hateful thing. I'm like, okay, well, actually, like fuck off, dude. Like, this is your problem and not mine. And I'm going to live my life today exactly how I was planning to anyway. And process the fact that that was painful with people who love me. And you don't, if you don't like me, you don't have to have anything to do with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't even know where I'm going with that anymore.
No, but
well, it's illuminating because, you know, and I think that this happens where, you know, we're like the whole thing about being like, you have all these things and these successes. And whatever. On some level, I think I assume that because you are such a smooth sailor, do you know what I mean? Like, because like you really, that I just thought you probably don't get the level of like harassment that some people might get who, let's say, because you're not a very combative person, and of course that assumes that people get hate because of their combativeness.
If they're combative, right, which is not true.
Right, of course, not because of like just who they are. And so
you don't have to do anything, but like, just be around.
Yeah, exactly. And visible. You know, like, oh, here I am, and they're like, you, or not visible,
like,
just
ugh.
Yeah. But I just kind of did not know that was something that I knew that you were openly like queer and gay, right? Or do you identify as gay?
I do. Yeah.
And non-binary, but I don't know, of course, like, of course you'd be getting shitty
maybe even
messages.
more. Right?
Yes.
Because of your spotlight sometimes, right? Because I think people love to get on the internet and go, I don't like the thing, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, and so like for me it's about like creating my own space where it's like I don't look at my second inbox.
Yeah.
You know, where like the message requests or whatever. I never look at them, and I will not, just because I did a couple of times early on, and I know what's waiting for me there, and I'm not interested.
That's power.
And,
how does the little red message thing not bother you? Sorry, the thing that
honestly, it's just like I'm just like, I'm not doing that anymore, and then
I'm sure that with your number of followers and stuff, it doesn't really matter if you were looking. You'd never not have notifications that you have more shit waiting for you.
I have all my notifications turned off. And I'd like, when somebody's rude to me about it in real life, like I have a series of like trusted coping mechanisms at this point where I trust myself to be okay most of the time, or to get to a place where I can be. It's like I have that figured out. So it's just like, it's the work of boundary setting, I think, personally. That's what that has been and continues to be. Where I'm like, okay, so what kind of boundaries do I need to set to create a space in which I can live as unbothered by this as possible?
You can live.
Exactly.
Wow, Eve, are you a comedian? Okay.
My dad wrote that joke. Yeah. Is there anything you want to?
Yeah. No. I'm going to take some of the things you said today and apply them to my own life, because like I have zero coping mechanisms for when I'm feeling certain things about my own sort of things, you know.
That's not true. You have new coping mechanisms.
I have new ones, but like I'm learning, like even going out now, you know, because now we're allowed out for the first time, like since May 17th. You know, I'm kind of I'm realizing I'm definitely not even the same person. I don't necessarily even know how to socialize. Like I wait for people to ask me questions, and then I just start talking about myself, when I used to be able to be like, what's your name? What do you like to do? And that's what I liked to do. But now I'm so like, you know, and then I'm like getting panicked, and then I'm like, wow, this feels weird. But I'm kind of, anyway, my point is like I have my own like things, and it's not great. I'm taking advice from a 25-year-old.
Oh, wow, that's reductive, right?
No, I mean that. No, but you know what I mean. Like I don't know. Like sometimes when I was 25, somebody had to wake me up on a toilet that I had passed out on from drinking. So I'm just like, I'm really impressed by you.
Liv isn't you at 25.
I don't care. No, don't make me feel worse. Don't make me feel worse about it. Okay,
but it's not like some kind of regression or something. It's like talking to someone who's just better than us. I think that's the point.
Okay, yeah, that's why we've invited Liv on the podcast. Okay, that's why we did it. But I do want to know, is there any one or anything that you see or feel like either reasonably or unreasonably jealous of?
Oh, I don't get jealous all that often.
I'm jealous of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm jealous of that too.
What do I think? Why don't I get jealous all that often? Well, I think about it professionally, right? Where like, you know, it's easy to fall into like comparison holes and stuff like that. When I think about, you know, the process of going out and trying to find work and being like, oh, I didn't get it and someone else got it. I'm just like, well, if you didn't get it, it isn't yours. So don't worry about it.
Wow.
That,
I'm like, what would I?
That, but you're right.
What would I think about all day?
I don't know. Yeah. How would I hate myself? You know? Okay.
Yeah.
I think you have to. Well, I have to anyway. Yeah. I find it helpful to like consciously let go of the things I can't control as much as possible.
Oh, you do.
That was so easy, huh?
It's so. It's not easy, but it helps.
Yeah.
It's so interesting sometimes, like, and I don't mean that Katharyn and I never get to this place. I think we do, but I think a lot of people don't. It's interesting to talk to somebody who's so like integrated and like developed, like especially in this like industry, because so many of us just like live in this kind of cocoon our whole lives where we're just like, this is who I am, I'm really fucked up, I'm just gonna keep being fucked up and I'm gonna keep pushing until I get my way. And so it works for some people. It's really painful, or you know, you hurt people on the way or not or whatever, but like it's but you're just like so obviously working on yourself so that it's like a real flow. It's just like water flowing through instead of just like push, you know what I mean? Like,
thank you, I try, because I'm just like, especially, you know, in terms of like, oh, we have to be pushing, we have to be working so hard, I'm just like, okay, what for? It's like, well, the answer to that is like, well, in order to be doing something that I find fulfilling. And it's like, okay, but if you're pushing that hard all the time, are you stopping to be fulfilled by it anytime?
Yeah. Or does it feel fulfilling at all?
Yeah.
Can you feel fulfilled?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Whew. Wow. Okay. Well, I guess I'm not going to gig tonight. No, I'm going to gig tonight.
My brain is throbbing.
Well, gig tonight, but like let yourself enjoy it as it's happening.
Yes. And and you know what? And at this point, I am enjoying it, but I will enjoy it more as a result of this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Now, Katharyn knows this is my favorite part of the podcast, which I forgot to mention to you before.
Oh, I'm excited.
So this part, we're excited. Katharyn says she doesn't like this. She fucking loves it.
I'm already turning red with embarrassment. Okay.
This is the part where we've said all these nice things about you and what we're jealous of in you. It's your turn to tell us of things that you envy in us, or just give us compliments.
Forcing compliments. That's what we're doing.
Yes, forcing compliments. Yeah, you have to. You can't get off the podcast until you've said something that we're going to really put under our pillow at night. And separate is, yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be grouped in with her, you know?
That's fine. That's fine.
This is
you can't sit with me either.
Yeah, I should have definitely included this in the message to you ahead of time, so you would have known that you'd be put on the spot.
This won't be a struggle. Don't worry about it.
Liv, stop it.
Oh, yeah. I'm already tingling. Okay.
Okay, I thought you said you hate this part, Katharyn. I think anyway, yeah.
Eve, I really appreciate how like direct you are, like with people, and it's not like it's all very. So, like, you put things on the table and you're not afraid of doing that, which means that there's a real approachability to you, in my experience of you, where it's like, well, yeah, this is how you feel about stuff, and you're interested in talking about it and feeling through it, and I think that's awesome.
Thanks, Liv.
I like that too.
Wow, I never got one from you. I'm like, both sides.
Wow, she's a star all of a sudden. She's like,
well, that's all we have time for today. No. Thank you.
And Katharyn, I think I like that I like how curious you are. Like really looking for information about yourself and about other people, and like not being afraid to reach out to other people through that process. And because I think sometimes, especially when you're trying to learn things about yourself, it's really easy to just go in and be like, I can't talk about that with anybody. But like, I see you not being afraid of that process and wanting to do it with other people and wanting to do it actively. And you both managed to do all of that while being really funny. It's awesome.
Oh, wow. God, the end of that was, I mean, I love the first part, but also then the funny part, just, you know, when you throw that in there, it's like, oh, God, it was perfect. Somebody put that on my headstone. Okay.
I'll be here and I'll do it. I know you're going to die
first.
That's
why we're doing the podcast.
Yeah.
I really appreciated you coming on this. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
This was very good for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Liv, is there anything that you want to plug? Anything you're working on, you've worked on that or you don't have to, but anything?
I'm working on a show here at the moment that will be out. Like, I don't think we can say yet, but you know, you'll hear. It'll be around.
Name or no?
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's called Yellow Jackets,
okay.
And it'll be. Stay tuned for information about that. And then I'm on the internet.
And who are you
working?
working?
My name on stuff.
Are you working with anyone we would know on Yellow Jackets?
Yeah, yes, but again, it's like that thing where we're filming it, and I'm like, what's public and what isn't? I don't know. But
that's great. Yeah, everybody knows everything about me, but you know, some people
just like look up if anyone's curious, just like look up the show and you know see some dates, and it's I'm really excited about it. I'm keen.
That's so cool.
People are gonna like it.
And your Instagram is liv.hewson, I believe, right?
That's correct.
And that's your main platform is Instagram.
And it's stylized. So, it's very beautiful.
Yeah, it is really beautiful.
I like whenever Eve, when I was trying to do our Instagram, I won't even get into it, but like I was explaining, you know, you have to make it look nice.
I got it. You were just
you did. But but when you look at Liv's, I'm like, see, when you look at that, aren't your eyes? It's like you want to get your eye prints all over that.
I like putting the
white frame.
I like putting the white frame because I don't like how Instagram crops pictures that aren't square. Like where it's like they zoom and you can't fit the whole thing in properly. Yeah. I'm like, no, that's not what the picture is.
Yeah.
Right.
But the difference between us is that you're like a glamorous actor and we are like a little scrappy podcast. You know what I mean? Like
this
I don't
is the podcast that could.
Yeah. Like, and we will be fine. But it's like I don't think anyone's like, oh, I want to see if they've modeled for anything recently. You know, it's like no, that's not why people come here. They're like, oh, you know, because I mean, there's literally a photo of me wearing Katharyn's dildo in a harness that Katharyn also gave me, like a strap-on harness. Well,
that was a gift.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure it was. Yeah, it was a gift from Katharyn to herself. It was a gift from me to me, baby. But that's why people come to our Instagram.
Yeah, because that's content, baby.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what? That one did well. I got to say. I looked at the likes. It did okay. Well, if you, so please like, subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Everyone's Doing Better. We now are on YouTube and getting actually some nice views. What is it, Katharyn? It's everyone's...
nice is that is a word for
all right, don't shoot it down. What is it? What's the name of the... What's the name of it?
What's the name of the podcast, Eve? What else would I name
is it just Everyone's Doing Better Than Me, or is it Everyone's Doing Better?
Yeah, well, I think so. Just once you start typing Everyone's Doing Better Than Me, I think.
It doesn't pop up right away. You got to search for Everyone's
You have the senior citizen make the podcast for the YouTube.
True.
Yeah,
I think if you put in Everyone's Doing Better Than Me podcast on YouTube, you should find it. You can follow me on TikTok at Eve Elbow, or on Instagram at Eve Elbow, Katharyn on Instagram at illgirlyouNasty, Liv at liv.hewson on Instagram, and tell your friends, tell your grandparents. They might get a lot of this.
Tell your friends and loved ones.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, thanks, Liv. Liv Hewson said so. So do the right thing here. Thank you so much for being on. You've been awesome.
Thanks for having me.